Hello and welcome back to the Godot community. I am Jody Ann Henry and I am the Middle School Theater PLC moderator. For today's webinar, I will be sharing with you the script analysis process, as well as provide tips and exercises to help the students explore their character throughout the rehearsal process. And lastly, I will be going over how to help our students reflect on their performance in order to grow and improve. So first, let's take a look at the script analysis process. What exactly is it and why it's important? What exactly is script analysis? It is the close reading of a text in order to establish its intended meaning, and this includes a thorough understanding of the setting of the play, understanding the subtext, as well as the character's objective within the play. Now, why is this important? It is important because it helps the actor just to have a clear overall understanding of not just the story and its message, as well as the character that they're going to portray. So it helps them to understand the character's individual growth throughout the script. If they're doing an entire play or if they're doing a scene, they understand the character's arc from the beginning of the scene to the end. And the same if they're working on just monologues. It also helps them to get a better understanding of the character's personality, as well as the character's relationship to other characters within the play or within the scene, or even the monologue, the character that they're addressing. This helps them to find ways to interpret the words of the script in order to create an original and a dynamic performance. A lot of my students, they are always so excited about getting a new material, getting a new script, and just diving right into memorizing the text and wanting to perform. And I always urge them, it is very important in order to really connect to your character emotionally and to really present a dynamic performance in which the audience connects to and really get an understanding of the character. They themselves, as the actor, have to know that character. And you're only going to have a better understanding and to know the character more by analyzing and studying and really diving into it. So here are some steps as far as the analysis process. So first, you may start off with a script analysis. So you're just looking at the plot structure, getting an understanding of the theme and the message of the play. Then you are looking at the character, the individual character. So you may do your character analysis. And this is where we just learn more about the character in the script. You are figuring out what are the facts and the inferences about the character. Again, there's some things that are explicitly stated by the playwright, and some things you just have to infer based on your understanding of what the playwright has presented so far about the character. And then lastly, it's the scoring of the script. You're identifying the character's objective, obstacles, stakes, and tactics. The script analysis. So here are just some questions that as my students are reading the script, we answer and discuss. And there's also a worksheet that they complete as well as a part of this process. So we focus on the plot structure. So as we're reading through the play, we're trying to figure out the exposition. So looking at the time period of the play, where it's located, what's the mood or the atmosphere, and any preliminary situation. So what is happening when the play first starts? Then of course we look at the inciting incident, we assess the rising action and take note of that. What are the complications and the major events that are happening in the play leading up to the climax? Identifying the following action and conclusion. Then we also start to take note of the character's personality and their mannerisms. So they'll identify who the protagonist in the play, they identify the antagonist, and they also start to describe any supporting characters. If we're just looking at a scene, as they're reading through the scene, they'll start to identify certain facts that are mentioned about the character, and how does that inform them about the character's personality. So just taking notes of any details within the scene or within the script that's mentioned about each individual character. And then they also discuss their personal views about the play. So what are the major themes that they've identified, as well as what's their personal reaction, giving their honest opinion about the play and the scene and what they understand so far. Then we start to look at specific demands of the play or the scene. Is there any specific details about the time period or any historical considerations that we need to keep in mind? And then they also, if we're reading an entire play, they determine the genre. So what type of play is it? So these are just some questions that I have my students respond to as we're reading through the play, again, to help them get a deeper understanding of what the play is about, the story arc, and the characters. The next thing we focus on, it's the character. So now we're looking specifically at one character. So if it's a scene that they're working on with their scene partner, they're answering these specific questions about the character that they're playing. Or if it's the monologue, the character they're also playing in that monologue. So they'll answer questions like, who am I? What time is it? Where am I? What surrounds me? What are the given circumstances of the past, present, and potential future? What's my relationship to the other characters in the scene? What is it that I want? What do I get? If I achieve my goal, what are the obstacles that are preventing me from achieving my goal? They'll also begin to answer questions about the character's personality, so describing the character in at least 3 words. They may also find pictures of individuals online that reminds them, or individuals that come to mind when they think of this character or when they picture this character in their mind. So questions like that. I may even ask them to create a playlist of songs that they think their character would listen to. So again, this is just helping them to get a better understanding of the character and also taking ownership of that character and finding ways in which they also relate. Now, the last thing we look at is scoring the script. And what's important, what does it mean to score a script? You're simply going through and marking your script, identifying your beats, identifying the tactics, identifying the different emotional changes and inflections throughout the script. And essentially, this just helps them to make specific choices when performing or portraying that character. And I always tell my students, this really just helps them to slow down and to really make deliberate choices and not just memorize the text and recite it. And a lot of my students, they've mastered being able to memorize a text in a really short period of time, but really not making specific acting choices when it comes to portraying. They're just reciting the words. And I really want them to attempt to connect, at least emotionally, and finding the physicality of the character when they perform. So here are some standards for the 6th grade class as it pertains to preparing for a performance. So it says to organize, design, and refine theatrical work. So the students should be learning how to identify artistic choices, how to utilize theater vocabulary, and demonstrate nonverbal communication skills in the rehearsal process. So the script analysis process, specifically the character analysis and scoring of the script, really helps them to identify and make those artistic choices when it comes to preparing for a performance. Interpret a character's motivation by understanding the relationship between their background and their behavior. Identify the variety of relationships between characters. Identify, define, and classify character traits. Recognize and demonstrate roles, responsibilities, and skills associated with collaborative performance. So all of these standards, especially A through D, is being targeted with students learning how to score the script and learning the importance of analysis and how to apply that to their performance. A lot of my younger students struggle with understanding this, but at least introducing the idea to them allows them to think about the performance more than it being more than just reciting the words of a character, but really connecting and making choices. When teaching this lesson, these are just some of the essential questions that I have my students think about throughout the process. So we ask ourselves, how does an actor analyze a script? And how does an actor use the analysis process to help their performance? What is the benefit of this? And how can we apply this process in order to, again, give us a more dynamic and original performance? So, as a part of scoring the script, the students are identifying the character objective and the beats. And here's just an example of a monologue, one of my favorite, from the play Fences by August Wilson. And the actor identified the character's objective within this monologue. And as you can see, we've also identified the beat changes by simply using a slash and notating those beats and tactics and action at the top by each beat. I generally also have my students not only identify the beats within the script, then the text, but also on a separate sheet of paper or just below, write out each beat and a summary of the beat and what's happening to help them with finding the action words to use for the tactic. I usually give my students a list of verbs, and here are just some examples. So I would have them read through the monologue, and we'll do this as a group. I would have them read through, and then we discuss what is it you think the character wants from the listener. What does that person want the listener to do, think, or say at the end of the speech? Each character, we all speak for a reason. We have an objective. There's a reaction that we're expecting to get at the end of the speech, and the same for the characters within the script. So, what is it again that you want the listener to do, think, or say? Then we talk about, if this is my objective, what are some things that I would do in order to achieve or to get this? And we make a list of those things. Then we look again at the monologue and just go through and see line by line to identify what the tactic the character is using here. And we use our list from what we would do to help us figure out what those tactics are within the monologue. So is my character apologizing? Is my character pleading? They're begging, they're threatening. And then we also look at the line delivery. So we may identify important words. We may look at sections of the monologue where the inflection may change. So after really breaking down the objective, we would also cross out any stage directions. Now that we're preparing for a performance, I ask them to take out any stage directions because sometimes they can get so tied to sticking to the stage directions that are in the script. Then I would have them mark any significant changes or tone within the monologue. They'd identify significant words, those keywords, we'll underline them or highlight them. What are those keywords that you must hit? And those are the words that really help not only the audience, but would help the listener really understand your point and what you're trying to achieve. I also had them identify any unfamiliar words, and they define those words. And then we go back and ask questions about the character. Is there anything else that we understand better about the character, or things that may change as far as our perception of the character now that we're looking a lot closer to the words and we're scoring the monologue or the scene? So again, that's just a quick overview of the analysis process. So have your students look more closely at the script to understand the story and the context of the play, focus more on understanding the character, and then lastly, they analyze and score the scene or score their monologue. And this is just an opportunity for them to look more closely at the words and the intention and the beat changes for the character.